Happy Hump Day, DFS Army. CashKeg and Chop coming at you this Wednesday morning, August 7th, 2019. I hope the weather did not affect any of your MLB games like they did it to mine, but we'll get more into that later. Today, Chop and I will be reviewing our head-to-head games from last night, looking at the very early FanDuel slate, and answer any questions you might have. So pop them in there as we go, and we'll answer them. But before that, if you're not already following me on Twitch, please give me a follow and turn on those notifications so you know that when I go live. Also, if you're not a subscriber to my Twitch channel, please give me a sub, as I'll be giving away some sweet DFS Army merch like this t-shirt for the Twitch subs only starting this NFL season. For those of you on YouTube, I'd appreciate you if you hit the like and subscribe button below, which lets me know that you want us to keep doing these videos each day. Also, click on the link below. Use promo code CashKeg to save 20% off your membership today to get all the tools, coaching, and info for all sports. We don't nickel and dime you here at DFS Army. We do everything to include NFL preseason, college football, NASCAR, PGA, tennis, EPL, and on top of all the main sports. We cover basically everything for a little bit more than $1 a day. And you can't get that anywhere. You really can't. And just look at some of the wins that we've had just this week. I mean, we got, 2 days ago? MLB Showdown slate, 6,500, ex-Beaver, smash that. The day before, your acne cream, 35K for MLB. I think that was another showdown slate, wasn't it, Chop?
I want to say yes.
I'm pretty sure it was. And then I smashed NASCAR the same day.
That one is a PGA win, so what do I know?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was MLB Showdown. And the same day, the dude won 5K on NASCAR. I mean, the day before that, PGA Showdown. 10K. I'm sorry, baseball, 10K. It's nonstop. Every day we have somebody hitting 4 to 5 figures, and it's just every sport. I mean, we could go down this thing nonstop.
Hey, stop right there. Go back. Up. One more. Wait, there's 2 hats on that leaderboard. Holy shit.
Yeah, there is. First and fourth.
We're everywhere, people.
Yeah, so again, for a little over $1 a day, man, we're not going to charge you extra for NFL preseason. That comes with it. College football, you're not going to be seeing an extra package for that. That comes with it. And we've got proven winners over and over. And we're here to help, man. We're in here all day long grinding. So, all right, Chop. Get that out of the way, man. Let's talk about last night's slate and how the weather made me just want to throw my computer out the window.
Well, I was going to say, hang on a second. I got to go get my umbrella and back off the deck because that sucked.
It was ugly, man. It got me off. You got me again, and it frustrates me. I see a guy like G-Man Choi, which I was not on until about 10 minutes before lock because, as you see, I went up to Kershaw, which helped a little bit, but it got me off of Didi. I had Didi in the shortstop position. Seager did okay, but Didi hit a home run last night. I had Ford in the top position at his price. I think he got about 9 points. I think I was on Muncy at second base. I had a different person in utility. And when I looked at that lineup, I think it put up like 180, and I would have crushed all cash games. But no, that stinking weather, man. Stinking weather.
But that's the thing. Is this is the hardest thing to get people's mind right regarding when we're talking about either cash games or GPP picks or anything. You always get the, hey, how's my lineup look? How's this look? Well, I don't know, man. It looks pretty good to me. But I can't tell you what's going to happen. All I can tell you is that there is a large degree of short-term luck in this. When you look at my lineup, yeah, it won last night. Yours could have been a 188. We'd be having a completely different discussion. That's the beauty of the game. But when we scroll down here, my pick that I had to get off of the Yankees because of the rain. So I had Mikey T and I had Ford in the 7-9, and I was pissed because I was like, I don't want the 7 and the 9 in a little mini stack in a cash game. I want to get something higher in the order, but Mikey T's been hot, Ford's cheap, whatever. So whatever, it gets Yankees exposure, and I wanted those 2 big Boston bats. So I was like, that's fine, whatevs. And I was an easy pivot to what I thought was pretty good with Parra in the 2-hole, and then Adams, who's been raking pretty good lately and in a good matchup out there. So I thought, okay, no big deal. But the real pivot was putting Iglesias in there in the shortstop.
Yep.
And that was a last-minute luck pick, because if people could climb inside my head and see the scrambling that I was doing for that last 15 to 20 minutes with, oh my God, I'm losing New York. What do I do? Okay, Washington. Okay, well, let's take out Washington and let's put in the short. I was really messing with the shortstop. I was stuck on the shortstop because I'm sitting here going, I can't use Didi. How far down do I go? And I'm going, oh my gosh, further down. I know Iglesias has been hot lately and he's in the 5-hole, but it's freaking Iglesias. He's probably used up all of his good swings in the past week or so anyway. But, and I just went ahead and said, screw it. And put him in there, and when I saw him hit that bomb or whatever last night, I was like, you know what? Sometimes the sun shines on a dog's ass.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Don't want to cut you off.
That's all it is.
And we talked about him as pivots in slack and why you have to be in there, especially when weather hits. We talked, Iglesias was like the low-end pivot there. Again, with Cleveland at the beginning of the night, we kind of thought that was not going to play, and then it got better. And my single entry again went to Cleveland because I thought they'd be loan, and that screwed me, but I ain't going to go there. But shortstop, we talked about Seager and Iglesias, both of them as being pivots down there. I think Polanco was the other one, the guys that were cash viable pivots. And again, you throw an Iglesias in there, again, at that price, in the 5-hole, man, he hits a home run, look what happens, man. So it's right there.
It's just the 2 points to take away there is, one, don't stress day to day. Watch your weekly, monthly, every couple of months numbers and make sure those are on par, but don't sweat day to day because there's a lot of short-term luck day to day. And number two, when the weather like that hits and games come on the radar and off the radar and it changes, when a Cleveland and a New York are both off the table and they were two key stacks. Now it's like, oh my gosh, I have to use my 4th and 5th and 6th favorite stacks today or whatever. That's what you need the coaching for. That's what you need Keg for. That's what you need the interaction with these guys that are producing these sheets like CG and the others that are going to kind of be able to tell you where you should slide next and where you should reprioritize. Because when the shit hits the fan, that's where you have your biggest edge, is having a community that has your back.
100%, man. So it's not been a good start for August for me against Chap and head-to-heads, but I still think I got the little bit of an edge from the July that I had. But it's good to see you starting to climb back a little bit.
A little. That's the numbers. That's regression to the mean, brother.
That's right. Let's pivot over to. Do you want to talk a tool real quick before we dive into the very early slate on FanDuel?
Yeah, sure.
Let's talk one we didn't talk yesterday. Let's pull up Nilly's Carnage report.
Okay.
And let you talk about this one a little bit. I think it's right above my head here. But
well, I'll tell you what. The first thing that I'm going to do for everybody that's in the Twitch chat here is I'm going to push that link in there for Nilly's Carnage guide.
Awesome.
Because what that's going to do is explain to you what all these columns and numbers are looking at. It's going to explain to you, what VK score is and how to use it to fade a GPP pitcher or get on a GPP pitcher, etc. So I would let Neely's article do that kind of talking. I am pretty much a shallow researcher. I got a lot going on in a given day, get pulled in a lot of different directions. So I kind of touch on how Keg does it, how some of these other guys do it. I have no idea. My brain doesn't work that way. It doesn't do well diving into if a guy ties his left shoe first or his right shoe first. I don't know. But what I do know is that Carnage number is a lot like the DFSA grade in the research station in that it's kind of a catch-all metric that Neely uses to identify who's in a good spot and who's in a bad spot. And so you can see today, is that the early?
Yes, the early
that you have pulled up?
Yep.
So what you're looking at is, a pretty trashy slate, but it's got a couple of guys on there that you might focus on. The purple numbers are always good. The dark red numbers are always really, really bad. And if that's all you get out of what I'm getting ready to say, go for it. But you've got Carnage, which tells you the good pitchers are going to be in good spots. They're facing bad offenses. They maybe have high strikeout potential. They have low WOBAs against them typically. They don't give up a lot of hard contact. They are also going to hopefully coincide with high DFSA grades in the research station to give you kind of two sources to look at. But you look over at Team WOBA, I would have to ask Nilly to be sure, but I believe that is to handedness. And then K-score and VK score. VK score is not in there yet, but VK score is Vegas K-score. So if you like the metric of K-score we talked about yesterday with being able to compare pitchers and their matchups apples to apples, whether it's Matt's McKay, Lynn, Flaherty, whatever. They're all different talent level pitchers that all have different strikeout rates, but they're also facing teams that strike out at different rates. And how do those compare to each other? That's what K-score does. Carnage obviously puts a big weight on that number, but VK score actually throws in some Vegas odds and some props. Things like that would also kind of equate that to a number that you can look at that would tell you, is this a good matchup, a great matchup, or a bad matchup? And just like everything else, you're going to want to look at the good matchups for pitchers that you want to use and avoid offenses that are going against the good pitchers, and you're going to want to look for the bad pitchers and consider stacking against them. So if you only get two things out of this sheet, purple is good, red is bad, top of that sheet is good for pitchers to use, bottom of that sheet is good for pitchers to stack against. So like a Sean Anderson, I'd be considering Washington. For Eduardo, I'd be considering Cleveland again. Those are the types of things that I can look at in 30 seconds, get in and get out, and have a good idea of where my research should be directed for the day.
100%. I mean, that's a great breakdown, and I definitely learned some things there. It is. It's a great thing to put. You should put it on your checklist as you go through and looking for your pitchers that day. To just come here and glance this, man. Like Chop was saying, break it down. Just look at the top. Look at those Carnage scores. Just go across, and if it checks the boxes as you're going through your pitchers, man. Or like Chops, if you don't have a bunch of time, you just want to look real quick. This is a perfect place to check and see. Okay, top 3, I'll pick one of those guys. You know, it all comes. I know everybody doesn't have a ton of time, but it's a great tool, man. It really is, and it's up there every day. So, yeah, where else do you want to go today, Chop? You want to talk a little bit about the very early slate today on FanDuel? I think it's a five-gamer.
I'll set you up with that one because I already know what you're getting ready to do today. I don't like it for cash. When you pull up all of those pitcher names, and I looked a little bit at some of their K-scores and some of their just generally their names and their Vegas odds and whatever else. And when Plesac's like a -175, you've got yourself a real issue with the entire slate. When he's the second highest priced pitcher at 7,500, you have a wide open pitching slate. So is there a cash safe pitcher today? No, none of them are. There may be one that's a little better than the others, like a Mats or whatever, but there is not a particular lock. I mean, we could pick and argue about these guys all day long. So where that would have me leaning is this is one of the rare times I might say, man, I don't know how much I want to play cash games on this slate because it is so damn wide open. There is no clear path to the 50% mark in a 50-50 or to win most of my head-to-heads because anything could kind of happen on this slate. So I might lean more towards tournaments, big leagues, and what you're telling me you kind of want to do today, which is MME this slate, where you can put a little bit of balance on several of these guys because they're all viable options.
They are, and it's definitely not a slate I'm playing cash, and I'm, I think, and that's something you got to learn as you go. And you can always ask us if we're going to play cash because we're going to let you know if we're going to play cash or GPP it. And I think this is just a great GPP slate. And like Chop was saying with pitchers, I think, they all have issues, but they all have some, have some upside here. Like Mats, I'm probably not going to go over. I'm going to do 150 lineups today on FanDuel on this slate, and I probably won't go over 30% on a pitcher. Like Mats, McKay, those are probably the top 2 guys I would target. I don't mind targeting Nova a little bit against Detroit because of that weak lineup. And Yamamoto, he's got some upside, but I don't mind stacking the Mets against him. So like I said, I'm not really taking a whole lot of these guys out of here. I'm going to throw a bunch of them in. Definitely don't run Font because he's just going to have a few innings before when we go back to Nilly's pitching report. He's just the starter there. But there's no real, hey, let's go really heavy on this pitcher or feel safe about it in cash. And then on a 5-game slate, you can't make mistakes in cash because if you do, you're going to lose. So if you want to play, it's fine. If you did, I would go either Mats or McKay if you're going to play cash, but I just wouldn't recommend it on this slate. And one thing we got to think about, too, is with that Cleveland game that got rained out last night, they're still throwing out, I'm pretty sure, Gerardo's still pitching. So stack up them Cleveland bats again. They were in a great spot, going to go heavy on them last night. you just go right back to the wheelhouse there with them. So I think they're going to be my highest owned stack on this early slate. Do you want to look at the domination station one more time and see see what hybrid scores are popping for?
Yeah, because we can look at either the hybrid score or we can look at DFSA grades, projections, whatever.
Yeah.
Like we said yesterday, the hybrid score is a blend between the two, and I'm a big consensus guy. That's why. And one thing I didn't mention before is with that Carnage report, if you've decided on your pitchers and say you primarily use Research Station like I do, you might cross-check it really quickly with that Carnage report being that you can look at it in 10 seconds and see, are these guys also at the top of the list? Because if they're also at the top of that list, then I'm using a different guy's brain to line things up and tell me that it's indicating, a good matchup on his side too. So that's like if you ask me a question and Keg a question, not that I'm the end-all be-all, but you're going to get, a lot of times the same answer, but sometimes you're going to get different answers. They're not usually going to be very different, but generally speaking, they're going to be slightly different. And that can help you break ties. Hey, Keg wins $6,000 and Chop wins $4. So I like Keg. That's fine. But you're going to also want to listen to a second opinion or a third opinion to help guide you through a slate. And that's kind of what that hybrid score does. Blends those two things together with DFS Army grade and projections to kind of give you a second opinion that's weighted in there and helps you kind of figure out what player you might use at shortstop over the other guy at shortstop that you're also looking at.
100%. I did this search by or descending order by hybrid grade just to see what pops. And like we're talking about early pitching, McKay pops. I mean, he's a great prospect. Toronto's been hot, so it makes you scary a little bit. Otherwise, if he was against, the Marlins or any other team or Detroit, it'd be one of those things where I'd probably go close to all in on him. But against Toronto, with how hot their bats are, but 6,700, I have no problem playing him at all. But then if you look up here, just number 4 down, Acuna right there. When you see a player like that is number 4 behind those 3 pitchers, you should have a lot of exposure to him. He's in a great matchup. But yeah, let's do by DFS Army grades real quick and see who's popping top. There you go. There's 2 Cleveland bats, and then Acuna at 3rd. I mean, if you just look at this list here, and if you always ask who's your top stacks, just look. Just pull up this tool and look at the top 10. Look, you're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Cleveland bats, 3 Atlanta bats. So what do you think you should stack then?
Miami, definitely Miami.
So I mean, you could probably build a lineup out of these guys right here with a cruise one-off if you want to, a 4-3-1 with a cruise one-off. As you said, you can throw about any pitcher in there, and you can come up with a lineup real quick going about that. It gets Cleveland. Of course, Cleveland and Atlanta are going to be very popular, but on a 5-game slate, it's not – you don't have to get freaky with changing the teams, but the bottom of the order, man. Targeting the bottom of the order in GPPs, you'll get guys that are – on a 5-game slate, maybe sub 15%. On a big slate like last night, you'll get them sub 5% on guys at the bottom of the order. I think Peraza last night on DraftKings was like 4% owned in that $15, man.
Really?
Yeah. And so it gives just guys towards the bottom of the order, man. You can get, on the teams that you want to stack, that's how you get a little different. You don't have to fade the team. Just fade some of the more popular bets, to get a little different. So that's how I'm kind of attacking it. I'll have a little bit of everybody, but not going to go completely off the board. Just going to try to stack towards the bottom of the lineup to get a little different.
So let me ask you this, because I know there's a few people that do things a little bit differently. We talk MME a lot about trying to cover all the bases and how even at 150 lineups, it's pretty impossible. You're going to have to make some choices somewhere and focus on some things. So I would ask you, when you say you go nearly all in on McKay, if he was facing a Miami or something like that, how much would you consider all in? And do you really take that quote-unquote all-in type chance on occasion? And then number 2, how many offenses do you typically target, on a normal slate, not like a 5-game slate, but just like a normal slate when you're looking at stacks and whatever to get at least a broad brush of the slate, but not something that is, pigeonholed to just all in on the Dodgers. I mean, you want to cover a couple of bases, but I don't know how many you typically cover yourself. For
pitchers, when I say all in, I have pretty high risk tolerance for stuff like this. And it depends on okay, so if you're entering, say, it was a $20 GPP on DraftKings or FanDuel, and to max it's $3,000, I might not go all in on the guy. just for me personally. But if it's like a $4 or $5 one, it's on the lower end. I don't mind taking that stand. If I really think he's in a good spot, I'll literally just go all in. Because if he smashes, you're ahead of everybody. Now, if it's baseball, and if he has a bad day, I know the risk of doing that. And if he flops, I'm completely dead that day, and I just shut the computer off and go do something else for a while. But you get over the field that way. Batters, I don't think I've ever went 100% on somebody. I tend to max them out around 60%. On the smaller slates, though, it's a little easier to go all in on a pitcher like that. On the bigger slates like last night, I might cap it at around 40 or 50% if I really love somebody. Just because there's so many different options out there that I don't think you have to go all in on somebody. But on a slate this size, I have no problem hitting the lock button. If I love somebody. On this slate, I don't. Talking about stacks, like on the big slate like last night, I tend to like to stick around heavy exposure to, say, six stacks, and then I'll sprinkle a bunch of them in at 5%. I'll go find some off-the-wall pitchers. One thing I like to do is if I feel like a pitcher's going to be chalky, like real chalky, hedge that, man. Like throw 5% to 10% against them against us. Like if Kershaw was going to be popular last night, I know he was. I know it was Wheeler. Stack against him, man, in GPPs. Like no problem throwing a 5% stack against that, because if he's going to be that stack's going to be less than 5% owned, and if they go off and tee off on him, you're going to be way ahead of the field because nobody's going to do it. So I love doing the hedge stacks like that, and especially when you're running cash. You run cash with a guy like that, like a Kershaw or a Wheeler. Get your exposure that way, and then in GPPs, maybe I don't want to run them at all, and just stack against them and hope they blow up, and it's just kind of hedging that a little bit. But yeah, that's how I attack. Like I said, about six stacks on a big slate.
Cool. I think that's one of the first techniques I learned years ago when it comes to hedging a little bit. This is the Clayton Kershaw. He's a minus 350 favorite 3 years ago. He's dominant. He's just going to whatever. Of course, he's going to have a hiccup every once in a while, so why not take a tournament situation, even if it's a single entry, and then stack against him? Because if I've got 80% of my bankroll for the day, my budget, whatever, thrown in cash lineups, and most of them are using Kershaw, then if he duds, then I'm going to get wiped out in cash. But because it's such a rare possibility that he's going to dud, when he does, I'm going to get paid in such multiples. My ROI is going to shoot through the roof if I catch it right when I stack against him in a tournament where I can get rewarded with, $1,000 on the dollar or something crazy like that. That will turn around and just repair all of the cash damage that I just took and then some. So you're using both. Now I can sit up and I can watch the Dodgers game at night and go, I don't really care which way it goes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and this is a slate with no, standout pitcher that we just want to load up on. This is a great, to have a little bit of my, on a 5-gamer, I'd have about every team. I have no problem taking 3 to 5% of some of these guys, like the Marlins. Not saying they're gonna win the slate for you, but they're not going to be owned. And if you throw just 3 to 5%, if you're doing 150 lineups and they go off, it's a way to get there, man. Same thing with a guy like Fried. I think he's going to be somewhat popular on the slate just because there's not a lot of pitching. I mean, Minnesota can smash anyone. So,
yep.
That's when I'll have more than 5%. I'll put 15% on them. Same thing with Plesac. Texas, they strike out a lot, but they can put up a bunch of home runs. So it's just, this is a slate that's fun to GPP because there's just so many different ways to go. And it should be fun today. But yeah, I'm definitely not playing cash. I'm definitely not. I think the whole day, because the way FanDuel has it broken up, I think if it's 5-4-5 chop, if I'm right, they're very, very early at 5, and then I think early's 4, and then the main is 5. So yep. I'm just gonna MME this, and then I'm gonna start studying NFL preseason the rest of the day, so I can get that video up. And that video is only gonna be VIP members only for DFSArmy. So, if you want a piece of that video and see where we're at, and Chris, I think, is already working on his sheet. It might be up already for the NFL preseason. You definitely gonna have to sign up, man. Get that one.
Yeah, for sure. Did you want to answer pretty Tony's question there about an example of a hedge stack?
Yeah, let me just do it here on FanDuel real quick. Let's see here. I'm trying to pick a pitcher I want to hedge against, or I was, because I was just running that thing earlier. I think actually a hedge stack against McKay is great, because even though he's a great pitcher, Toronto's been hot. So if I was hand building one of these things with Toronto, first guy I look at, I want the home run hitters, man. You know, Guerrero, Bichette.
You mean bunt type hitters and slap hitters don't win GPPs?
No, they don't. On a 5-gamer, maybe a little bit, but but they have so much power here, man. Any of these guys, Guerrero, Bichette, I would start with. And again, here's where you're thinking. I love Gurriel, but if you look at percentage-wise, Hernandez is going to be way lower owned. So if you look at him, just right there, it'll be a little bit different than maybe other people's stacks. Bichette's going to be really highly owned, and maybe you don't want to go there. Maybe on your other stack, depending on the two teams you're stacking, that really matters as well, because maybe another team that you have has a stud shortstop, and you have to choose some of these more outfielders. Some teams have. A good example is, I would say, Cleveland, right? And say I want to do a hedge stack against McKay and throw Toronto in here. But I know if I go to Cleveland studs that I want to get on, and I don't want to be different, are, guys like Lindor. I know they're stacked everywhere after the trade deadline, but I know Lindor, Ramirez I want to have in that stack. Well, then I can just throw the Toronto outfielders, which I all love, and then figure it out from that. But each team has their guys that smash the ball that you want to throw in there. But you got to know where they're at and what's the best lineup construction with that. So I don't just want to plug 4 in. I want to kind of feel out the stacks that I want to do by hand. And so, yeah, I really like a Cleveland and a Toronto hedge stack against McKay, and throw maybe Matz or one of the cheaper pitchers down in there. Would be a great hedge stack against him.
Yeah, I hope that answers the question, because that's really the point, is you don't need to be so different from everybody else that you borderline look like you should be in the institution. What you want is to be just a little bit different. I mean, because on a smaller slate like this, where let's say if we ran this slate 100 times, Cleveland is mostly going to win the slate because they're in the best matchup. And I mean, without looking deep into the numbers, I'm just using them because they were in such a great spot last night. We were all so excited to roster them. But let's say they're in the best spot again today, and we look at that lineup and go, okay, so here's where everybody's going to go. And in my full 4 stack of Cleveland Indians, why don't I take 3 of them? And then why don't, instead of, say, taking Lindor, take Luplow or somebody that's a little bit lower, or why don't I focus on, maybe the bottom part of the order today instead of the top part where everybody else is going to go. And then instead of taking the small bats in a different lineup that everybody else is going to have to, they took all the expensive stuff out of Cleveland, so they're going to have to go cheap in Toronto. Well, then why don't I go cheap in Cleveland and expensive in Toronto? I still don't care if those offenses are the ones that are going to do the damage. I'm still kind of in the chalky offenses with a more or less safe strategy. I've just kind of turned it a little bit off of what everybody else is doing, so that if I catch right and they don't, I leapfrog all.
Yeah, 100%. And I just pulled this one up here at Toronto. I mean, if I'll refresh this and see if the lineup's out. I didn't look, but if this is Gritchett 6-hole, Hernandez 7-hole, and then Biggio 8-hole, all 3 of those guys can crush the ball, and they're all at the bottom of the order. But just it's the way to do it, man. On a slate like this, you got to get funky when there's only 5 games to win it. So, before we get out of here, though, Chop, do you want to mention the new trial we have going on for sign up for DFS Army?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that the guys that are in here watching this Twitch stream aren't all already DFS Army members. I'm hoping there's a few guys in here from the outside. So, and when I post the links and stuff, I'm not trying to barrage you guys that are already members. You guys already know what's up. But for people that do tune in, being a public and a free Twitch stream, there are a couple of different ways to join DFS Army if this interests you. If you want this kind of interaction, you want this kind of coaching, because you clearly can tell that Keg knows what he's talking about. He's got the numbers and the volume to back it up. We've got other coaches that do MME and do single entry tournaments and do other stuff that are really, really good at what they do. Your best bet is to come in here and ask these guys questions and get that feedback like we were talking about. So that link up in there, the DFSArmy.com link, using coupon code CashKeg or CHOP, either one, gives you 20% off each and every month you stick around. Not just your first month like a lot of other places do. It's every month. And that price that you lock in at is completely grandfathered in. If we ever raise our prices in the future, if you never leave us, you don't ever pay more just because prices went up for new people. If you leave and then come back, I can't help you. You latch on to the newest pricing or the current pricing. But we've also introduced a new idea for people that kind of want to kick tires and test drive us and make sure we're talking, for real about what we're about. And that's a trial offer. It's a coupon code, same link, trial offer, coupon code TRIAL, TRIAL. And that gets you a 5-day trial for $10. I mean, $2 a day. And you get access to everything. I mean, not just MLB. You're getting access to NASCAR's coming. Week 1 preseason NFL is coming. We've got an MMA slate. We had a 22-game tennis slate, if you're into tennis. We've got every single sport. We've got coaches for every single one. We've got tools, research stations, domination station, optimizer, and, like you've seen similar specific reports like, CG Stacks report or Carnage or the starting lineups page, whatever, that you can look at every single thing and then come and ask us questions. And we'll explain to you where you might have questions. And that's where you're really going to learn about what DFS Army is about, what the coaching is about, and how it can help you improve your game. Because that's really what we're founded on, and that's what we want to do. We're a coaching site first, and we're a tools site second. So we're just going to show you how to use the tools to make yourself a better player. And for 5 days and $10, it's pretty hard to say no to that. So that trial, TRIAL coupon code will trigger that for you if that's the way you want to roll.
Awesome, man. Well, I think I'm going to build a few lineups here. I think lock's in about, 30, 40 minutes. I don't know if it's 12:10 Eastern Standard. It's pretty early, that lock. What is it here? It's, so we only got about 40 minutes left before that slate locks. So I need to build some lineups. I'm sure Chop does too. But we'll be in chat all day, man. So come in there and ask some questions. And I know the sheet's already up for the early slates, and then we'll have the main slates later as well. But yeah, I hope to see you in there, and I'll talk to you later, Chop.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll be back in a couple of days, I'm sure, and we'll talk to you then.
Definitely. Deuces. All right, man.